To bring in right now the president of Americans for Tax Reform, Grover Norquist. And Grover, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. So, okay, we know where we are in the tax plan. We know you like what you've seen so far. There is a pushback, number one, on the state and local income tax deduction. I don't know that they're going to be able to get that done. A lot of people in the House are even pushing back on it. And now there's a story in the Journal today that the Senate Republicans are pushing back on the removal of the estate tax deduction. Your reaction? Are they going to get this done with this pushback?
Look, there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Any Republican senator or congressman can get on television if they raise some objection to the bill and want to look like a maverick. I think that there'll be a certain amount of that. I do think that we do need to eliminate the tax deductibility of state and local taxes. That is a subsidy for Chicago. It is a subsidy for New York City. It is a subsidy for incompetent and corrupt government. And we shouldn't be encouraging cities to pile on higher and higher property taxes, and we shouldn't punish cities and states that cut their income tax and cut their property tax. So this is a question of setting up. We incentivize big government at the state and local level, and then we're surprised you end up with Detroit and Chicago and New York. Our tax policy should be to create jobs, not massive big government.
But Grover, it's Dagan McDowell. Isn't it a little rich for some of these Republican governors and these Republican lawmakers from states that take way more federal money in terms of federal spending versus what those states pay in federal income taxes? It is states like New York that are actually footing the bill for the spending that they get from the feds in all these other states. So there's inequality everywhere.
Well, oddly enough, the Democratic senators from states like New York and California vote to damage their own states when they vote for big government spending. That's quite true. That's not hypocrisy on anyone's part. That's simply stupidity on the part of Schumer, who is taxing New Yorkers and sending the money other places.
But it's hypocrisy on behalf of the Republican lawmakers who complain about the state and local tax deduction as being unfair, but they take more money than their own states pay in taxes.
Look, I'm arguing that it is an incentive structure that subsidizes and encourages high taxes in any of the states, and that's unhelpful. And back in 1978, when we were passing Proposition 13 in California, then and now Governor Brown said, don't vote to cut your property taxes because some of that will go to Washington. He argued against cutting property taxes in California because of the state and local tax deductibility. So it's a tool that local politicians use to advocate for higher taxes and against tax cuts, and we ought to get rid of it and take our rates down for everybody.
Yeah,
it's
maybe it makes it easy. It makes it easy for New York to have high taxes, for some of these states to have high property taxes. Basically gets them off the hook because of this deduction.
Yeah, the politicians certainly play it that way.
Yeah.
Well, let me come back to what Maria was hitting. I think this is going to be the really big issue in terms of the pressure Republicans are going to get to not take down top rates. It starts with the estate tax. It starts with the state and local deduction, but it's going to move. You know it's going to move to the top income tax rate. There's going to be a lot of pressure to not bring that down. You're going to see complaints about bringing down the rate for pass-through, even the corporate income tax rate. That, to me, is going to erode this plan, make it far less pro-growth. But that's a direction it seems to be moving. Do you have hope?
They're getting bullied again.
Do you have hope that Republicans can actually stem that tide and bring down some of the rates that hit top-end earners?
I do, for several reasons. One, the American business community knows that we're getting killed with a 35% rate. It needs to come down at least to 20. So all of those companies are talking to the Republicans and saying, do this. Obama wouldn't. And then there are 30 million pass-throughs or subchapter S corporations, 30 million Americans and their spouses. So if a congressman or senator wants to play the game that Obama and Democrats do, which is to attack self-employed people and small businesses, they're welcome to, but they're going to look at an incredible firestorm of Main Street opposition. On the death tax, every poll going back 50 years has shown 70% support plus in the United States for abolishing the death tax. It is a tax on the income you've saved your entire life, and if you're stupid enough to die, they want to take up to half of it. Hillary wanted to take it up to 65. That tax is not paid by the Kennedy kids. They have ways of getting around that. It's paid by small businessmen and farmers who haven't organized their lives around generation skipping.
Yeah.
So we really need to get rid of the death tax And the good news is the American people don't think it's fair. Any politician who thinks they're playing to some sort of populist base on this has not looked at the history of the polling data on this.
Yeah, and even if you get rid of it, it's not if you don't get rid of it, it's not enough money to really make a difference. I mean, when you're talking about the deduction of state and local income, you're talking about $1.3 trillion. That's real money. I mean, that to pay for this plan, but you're not getting that kind of money from the death tax.
Right.
Joni.
Grover, I have a question. Obviously, we're waiting for the BLS job report today at 8:30. Job creation, something that we're very focused on right now, and tax reform could certainly help employers bring back jobs. I've been in recruiting and staffing for 25 years, and I've worked with companies and seen jobs go overseas. So I'm wondering your thoughts on what tax reform will do to incentivize employers to bring jobs back to the U.S. Will it work?
Oh, absolutely, because we've seen that the high rate that we have, higher than almost all other countries, has been driving both jobs and the ownership of American companies to Canada, Burger King, to Europe.
And Ireland.
And Ireland. We know that high tax rates here drive work out of the United States. We need to end that. We're at 35%. Communist China's at 25%. You'd think even the Democrats could figure out there was something wrong, and there's a reason we have trouble competing with China.
Yeah.
We're at 35. They're at 25. They're supposed to be the communists.
So is there anything you want to say to Nancy Pelosi, who said this plan's going to add to the debt, since I know you like this plan?
Well, Nancy spent 10 years doubling the debt with Obama, so I'm not sure that she's an expert on debt, but not on having less of it.
She doesn't have the credibility that she thinks she does on debt. Grover, it's always a pleasure, sir.
Good to be with you.
Thank you so much. Grover Norquist there.